Welcome to the second video. We are looking at the animated Doritos sting, which we are recreating in Adobe After Effects. Now in the first part we had a look at animating the text. Now what we're seeing here is the actual finished Doritos sting, and it's on this MP4 video which we've layered at the top. I'm going to turn the visibility of that off. It is purely a guide at this point. Besides that, we have three main layers. We have the for the bold text, we have the Doritos text, and we have the triangular logo that fits in there. And in the previous video we looked at animating those to get them to sort of pop out, and of course we did use the video to try and match that up as best we can to get them moving there. Apart from the particle effects and the lighting effects and all that kind of stuff, the other main thing that we want to look at is the formation of this logo in the background. As we can see, it starts from a spark, it gradually moves up, hits the first corner, hits the second corner, hits the third corner, and then sort of flares out from there. It gradually settles down to have a reveal of the final logo. And that's essentially what we have right here. Nice and neat, but with no particles. So we want to get this triangle layer and get that to gradually form. Now to do that we're going to use masks. So I'm going to actually show you how a mask works. I'm going to turn off the text layer and the Doritos layer and just select onto the triangle layer. I am then going to select the pen tool. The shortcut is G, and I'm going to draw a shape. And this is just a demo, so I'm going to not do it correctly. I'm just going to create a shape like that. Once I've done that, you'll notice that it now hides everything outside of that shape. I can move points in this, and as I move them, anything that is still in that shape will be shown. Everything outside will not. I can create extra points for this. I can delete points from this as well, and there is a delete vertex tool. So that's all very well and good, but how is this going to help us? Well, if I go to the drop down of the triangle, you'll see now that we have a mask drop down, and there is our mask here. Now you can create multiple masks within a layer. I also suggest making sure that you select a color for the mask. That's going to make it easily findable. So I've selected a green here. There's a nice contrast to the reds, and also it makes it jump out from the black. Now if I was to change this to black, for example, we're not going to find it very well. So do make sure you get something that's got a little bit of contrast to it, like so. Now the other main thing I want to show you is this mode here. So you'll need to make sure that this central toggle is turned on so you can access the modes, and then make sure that this is changed from add to subtract. What subtract's going to do is it's going to only show you what is outside of the path. So outside of this shape that we've created, it will show you everything. So we're kind of reversing it. I'm going to delete this mask, so I'm going to make sure I select on the mask and hit backspace or delete. And let's do the mask properly now. I'm going to make sure I've got the pen tool selected, and I'm going to create this sort of shape. Now you may wish to play around with this. You want to make sure that all the elements are shown. Give them a bit of space on each side. We're not trying to get exactly around this. We're giving it some space. Go back to our mask here. I'm going to change it back to green again, and I'm going to go to the drop down there. Now one of the cool things with the mask is we have a few options here, including mask path. I'm going to make sure my mask is set to subtract once again. My triangle is now completely hidden within that shape. I'm going to turn on my video layer, and I'm going to find out where my video starts forming. Now I do want to see my shape underneath, so I'm going to drop the opacity. You can hit T to bring up opacity, or use the drop down for the video and go to opacity, and just lower that to the point where we might be able to start seeing our text. I'm just going to turn the text on so we can see both, like so. So I've got mine set to, I'm going to make it around about 50%. I can see my image and I can see that spark forming, but you can always play around with that later. I'm then going to go to our mask. So let's figure out where this starts. I'm going to scrub back. Now don't forget, this shape doesn't actually form completely, so it's not really important that we get this little beginning part here. We're just focusing on the main shape. So I'm going to look at this and start figuring out when I should start animating this. So I've got it set to about the 6 frame mark. I'm then going to activate the mask path. As I scrub forwards, I'm going to find the point where I think that logo is fairly well formed, or just about. So I'm going to go around the 17 frame mark, but again, use your own intuition for this. I then am going to select on particular points on this. Now be wary, if it selects the whole object, do jump out. You may wish to use the move tool. Just click out of the mask and then click back on one of the points that you want to move. So I'm going to now drag these points and I'm going to try and find a point where this is going to start forming, and as I move this back you can see there it is there. Now you may wish to really put some subtlety in this and make sure it's sort of forming at the correct pace. You don't want to overdo it with position points, so try keep it to a minimum if necessary. You don't need to do a keyframe for every single situation, but enough that's going to give you. You can of course delete points if you need them. I'm going to continue on to see where that point ends up. I think at about that point there, and once again I'm going to start moving some points around. Now you're going to have to be a little bit creative with this because we need less and less points as we continue on. So it's about hiding and making sure that we've got that happening. You may need to do a little bit of tweaking in this to make sure that it is showing it correctly as far as the framing goes. And just step back, and there we go. As it continues on, you can see it hits that point there. I'm going to start herding all these points back. Until gradually we get to a situation where the entire shape is exposed, and of course we're not going to see the entire triangle here. We're going to create some of those particles with that, and we've got a few keyframes here, and it's kind of following along. I'm going to turn that video off and just hit the space bar, and you can see there's our triangle forming. It's pretty quick, but that's the speed that the video has sort of played it at. If we drop our text back in now, and there it is. It's still a bit rough, and there's a few things that we can do to try and fix that up a bit. So let's jump into the mask here. I'm going to get to a point where it's sort of partially through, and I'm just zooming in again, Control or Command plus to zoom in and move it around with my space bar to get the hand, and a few other things that I'm going to look at. So mask feather, and of course you can click on the numbers here, click and drag, you drag to the right, and what this will start doing is it will start blurring out the mask a little bit. So this might actually help us sell the effect a bit more. It's going to be less of a harsh straight line and have a bit of a blur. So do have a play around with that. You don't want to overdo it. If you overdo it, it's just going to gradually expose the entire element. So you want to keep it subtle enough that it blurs the edge, but not too much that it exposes the points before they appear. And there it is there. So fairly straightforward. We can have multiple paths on a path, all that kind of stuff, but simplicity does work well with paths. So give it a go and see if you can get a path happening on our triangle.